Hi there, and welcome to another video. Today's tutorial is going to take you through the object editor, and the object editor is a very important element of the Appward development experience, and you need to get really familiar with how it works, and so I'm going to take you through it. So let's get going. So here's my workspace, and how do you get to the object editor? Well, let's first just right-click our mouse, and there's a list here, and one of them says object editor, so we're going to pick that up. And this is the object editor, and what you see here is there's a left portion which is listing a bunch of what are called objects, and they're represented by a little image and a name of the object here. And then over to the right are basically a grid indicating the different properties, methods, and quick scripts of that object. So every object that you click on, it'll populate over here. And what we're doing here is we are talking back and forth to the server, and it's delivering information to us very, very quickly. Not a lot of latency or delay in this. So what are objects? Well, there's another video that talks about objects, but basically an object is a self-contained class of properties, of methods or actions, and scripts or events that can be utilized within the Appward ecosystem. Objects are created from a class, and these are up here in this combo is all the different classes of objects that we have. And you can select a class and add an object to your object editor, and it'll show up. And so we have a whole range of, I think it's like 350 different types of objects. Once an object is created, it's given a name which is unique only within the hierarchy that it exists. So, for example, under applications, we have a bunch of application objects. So all of these have a unique name. But underneath here, I can go to the child of this object and the child of this object. And you can kind of see a hierarchy where this is the parent of this one, this is the parent of this one, this is the parent of this one. Okay, so we talk often about a parent-child relationship, and so every object can work on its own. It has its own properties, its own ability to do things, but it can also contain other objects below it. And depending on the type of object, some objects expect certain things to be under it. In other cases, you're pretty much free to put objects where you want them. You can develop your own sort of plan for hierarchy. Now, when you look at Appward applications, you're going to see a very defined hierarchy so that all the apps work in a similar fashion, and they're easier to code that way. The object editor is a useful tool, obviously, because you can dig down and really see all the inner workings of the Appward ecosystem that you're operating in right now. Okay, so now I'm looking at my objects. These actually exist in my workspace, and so someone else who logs into Appward into their workspace will see a different set of objects. They'll be very similar, but as they develop and build on their workspace, they're going to see more, let's say, objects in their development applications object tray here. And so we're going to see, this is your personalized set of objects, okay? There are some buttons at the top: add, copy, child, delete. We'll get into those: undo, find, files, colors, create. And then there's this. So how do you actually make a change to an object? Well, why don't we go ahead and add an object? So I'm going to go into a container object. You can see as you click on the object, it's displaying the class of objects. So this is a container object. Its name is stuff, and it's a general object to contain other objects. Okay, so I'm going to come underneath it, and you can see kind of a varying list of other objects. There's a variable array object, there's a script object, there's a file info object. Okay, now I can add another variable object. I can just come up here to the class combo list and type in var, and you'll see there's different types of variables. I'm just going to add a simple variable and add it. Press the add button, and you can see it's created a variable, gives it a name that's a default name, and then it adds a 1 here because there was an existing one up here. So I can come up now and change the name var, I'll just call it, my name is Dave, so I'm going to say var Dave, okay? Now, obviously, you would normally name variables with a descriptive name for what the variable will be holding. You usually want to use the first three letters as the class of object. And so you'll see that throughout Appward, like an app object starts with APP and then the name of the object. A sandbox object starts with SBX. A pop-up screen object starts with POP. So is it required that you do that? No, it isn't, but it's a good idea because that way when you're programming and you're writing code, you can know the class or the object by the name of it. And so that's a pretty useful guide when you're scripting and things like that. So back here to this variable. This variable it has a value property. I can type 1, 2, 3 in it, and so I've created this variable. Now, if I try creating if I add another variable and I give it the same name, var Dave, it won't let me do that. It'll add a 1 to it because within the children here, all these must be unique, and the reason for that is we use paths to identify objects. So we would use .stuff.var Dave to identify this one. Obviously, if they're both named var Dave, you wouldn't know which one you're actually talking about. Okay. Now to delete an object, I can click it, press delete. Okay. Now it comes up and asks me, do you want to delete this? I'm going to say yes. Okay. Now if we want to avoid that pop-up, we can add some objects here and then hold the control key down, press delete, and it will just delete without that. So if you get kind of comfortable and you want to do a bunch of deleting, just hold the control key down, delete, and it won't ask you for that yes, no pop-up every time. Now, obviously, I went into this object and added var Dave. Now, what if an object has no children? So let me add another stuff object. So I'm going to add another container. And what you notice here is when I click on an object, it inherits up here. It fills out the same object, and that's useful in that you don't have to necessarily select another class when you're about to add an object. So because I clicked on a container, I can add, and it'll add another container, and I can call this Dave's stuff. Okay. Now, what if I want to add something below here as a child? Well, that's pretty easy. Let's add a variable. So let's come here, type variable, select it. Now I want to add it as a child, so I just select the child toggle here and press add. And it immediately adds it and then deselects child again, so that you're not accidentally, if you press add, it doesn't add a child to this one. Okay, so that's how you would add a child. How do you copy? Well, you can copy by a very similar method. Let's say I want to copy this whole stuff. I'm going to first delete this one. So if I delete the parent, it's going to delete all the children. So you want to be very careful about your deletions. And so here I just deleted that. I'm going to copy stuff. So I'm going to press copy and then paste it. And what that will do is copy the object and all of its parents and all of its properties until you've got a duplicate of that. And that's how you would copy, which is pretty nice. Okay. Now you can also do things like, let's say I want to cut something. I can right click, I can cut, and then I can paste somewhere else. Normally that's not done that much in objects. Okay. So that's how copy and paste. And again, I can deselect copy and we're back to the add mode. So now what if I want to copy and paste into an existing object? Like let's say, as an example, I've got stuff here. I'm going to delete, let's say, the children of this one, and I want to copy some of these children. Well, what I can do is click here, hold the control key down, and multi-select, then right-click, press copy. Okay. You see it selects this, or I could have pushed copy up here. Now I go to this one, then I add child and I paste. And you'll see that by clicking child, I'm indicating that I want the next action to occur based on it being a child action. So what I'm able to do here is copy a bunch of children to another parent. Okay. And obviously, if I'm on the same level and I want to paste, I can just paste directly by just pressing the paste button. Okay, so let me delete that. I don't need that anymore. What else? The object editor has a right click, and you can kind of see some options here. If I want to save an object to my local hard drive, I can actually save it. So you can, in essence, take an entire application, save it based on a JSON or a binary format. We usually recommend binary, and it will save to a .obf file, which is kind of nice. So I can test this. Go binary. It comes up, asks me for where I want to save it, and this guy's actually saved. Actually, this is saving to the cloud, not to your local. So I can save this to my personal cloud repository, and that's a way of backing up certain files, and then I can download it directly from that cloud-based storage location. I can also load that way. I can load objects. So for example, if you want to save an object, transfer it to your friend or your colleague, have him load it into his, he can do that. It's a way of transferring object information back and forth. So, and then we also have analyze. Analyze is kind of nice. You can analyze not only the entire Appward ecosystem, but also specific apps. So in this case, if I'm interested in this app, I can go to the sandbox, right click, do an analysis, and in the left portion here, it takes a few seconds, but it comes up back and tells you how many objects are in that app, how many lines of script, and how many actual script objects there are in this case. So there's 248 different scripts in functions, and making up about 2,400 lines of script for that entire app. Okay, which in comparison, a typical app on an iPhone is about 50,000 lines of code. So you can see that this is a pretty low code environment. We're probably 40 times less code than a typical app. And it also gives you an idea of here, the analysis shows you the type of objects that you have in your app. So you can kind of see what's prevalent. Okay, right click again. We have the copy, delete, all that. Show my sandbox. What that option does right here is every workspace operates within its own main sandbox for that workspace, and you don't see it here because this is showing you the first level past that sandbox. But if I were to right click and show my sandbox, you'll see that it's showing you now that all of this exists within an object. It's a sandbox type object called Dave, and so every workspace operates within its own sandbox, which means that we can't get outside of that sandbox using code. We won't be able to code someone else's sandbox or go out and monkey with other people's workspaces. So that's a way of sort of locking you into your own sandbox here. Okay, so I can right click, I can hide my sandbox, and then we also have a way of sorting. You want to be careful about sorting. There are certain cases where you don't want to sort, but let's say I've got a bunch of variables and I want to sort them, or a bunch of these screens, for example. If I want to sort this list, I can do that. Right click, sort by name my children, and you'll see that this will sort them all out. Okay, and move the pop-ups to the top and the screens to the bottom. Now the only time you don't want to do that is don't sort icons within a screen, because they get their placement position by the position they are in the object tree. So don't come in here and go sort that, or your screen is going to be all jacked up. Okay. What else? Let's talk about undo. So if I come in here and I delete something, if I delete this script object, okay, and I say, oh, I didn't want to delete it. Well, that's okay, because there's an undo control right here. And what that does is every time you delete something, it actually moves it to a trash receptacle sitting in this as a child of this. And that trash is right here. So the last trash is script 2, which I copied over. Now, I can restore that just by clicking restore on that, or I can just use the undo to restore that. And what it will do is undo the very last object editor change. So if I press undo, are you sure I want to do? Yes, it is. And boom, it pops right back to where it was. So that's pretty cool. So it basically remembers where it was, puts it back in there, and I can continue to undo, and it'll add the stuff and the other stuff, and it'll maintain this undo this list of previously done objects for this amount of time, and you can define what your retention duration will be. This is mine's set for 48 hours. So after 48 hours, it'll start cleaning up. And what it does is it takes a look at each trash, and it knows when it was deleted, and it'll just undo that or delete that trash so that it doesn't build up too much over time. Okay. There's a find replace. I can do that by either pressing find here. I get this find and replace screen, or I can, within an app, I can just press Control R or Control F, find, and that's useful if I want to find certain things. So in this case, it's an animals app. I'm interested in anything that says show animal. Okay, animals. Do a find, and sure enough, here it's located. All of the areas where it has show animals in either a property or a script or something. Now what's nice is from this find replace thing is I can just double click on each of these, and it'll go right in and target where that is. See that? So I can just kind of like go step by step, and it's locating the object where this thing is. And you can see it's the before show script. So of the screen main, right? So here I can come in to the before show script, and sure enough, I'm going to see show animals. Okay, so search and replace is a nice feature there. Obviously, if you're going to do a replacement, be very careful, because you could easily copy over a whole bunch of stuff, and all those replacements are not going to be stored to your undo control. Okay, search and replace is basically changing properties, and that's not going to be reversible. So you want to be careful with that. What else? You can bring up the color picker to identify certain color numbers. Let's say you want to copy this thing into a property. You can do that. You can also the create button. It basically lets you do certain building operations. It's currently not active, so I'm not going to demo that right now. Another thing that this will do is if I go into an application, and let's say I find a path here, I can hit Control Go, Control G, and it'll jump to that. That's a go command, okay? And I can type Control R to return. Okay, so that's if you see a path and you want to go to where that path is targeted, you can use the Control G, Control R. It's rarely used, but there are people who do use it. Okay, and so anyway, I think that's about it. So there's obviously it's a powerful editor. It's used to build applications. Using the object editor and the screen editor is kind of your go-to place when you're doing development within Appward. Last thing I want to before I leave, I want to kind of show you how you manipulate certain types of methods and quick scripts. So in any object, so here's a let's say this is a pop filter. These are normal properties, and you can always type something in here, or you can press this multi-dot, and that will bring up the picker for whatever you're trying to change. When you come down, you're going to see a series of orange properties that are called methods, and these are the actions that object take on. So a show method, for example, for a screen will bring it up. So if I press show, there it is. Okay, so by running that method, you're actually executing one of the behaviors of that object. And then the other thing is the green represents event scripts, or quick scripts as we call them. And these are just individual scripts that run at certain events and actions of the object. So a before show script would run right before the show is executed. So we can come on in here and kind of see by double clicking on that or press edit, you can edit that script. So you can manually run any method. You can manually edit any of these scripts. And normally these methods are tied to scripts, so that when a script runs, it executes certain methods. So you have method calls like that. The other thing I wanted to talk about is this user and retain property here, which is interesting. So the user and retain are used when you want to have a property that you want to keep for yourself, meaning for you as a user, and not have other people see the same properties. So if you're writing an app, for example, and you want to have that app be used by other people, you want to decide which of the properties are going to be user properties and which are going to be generally available to everyone in terms of the value that it's showing. So what you're going to see here is we will typically, let's say I want to create a screen that multiple people are going to use, okay? And so let's say I have a screen. Let's go to this screens object. I'm just going to run one of these pop-ups to show you how that works. Okay, so here's a screen, and it popped up there, right? It popped up right there. And when I move it over and I close it, the next time I show it again, it's going to pop up where it left off. Now, what if I want to have it retain this position, meaning I move the pop-up over here, but I want it to retain its left and top position? Well, what I can do is go into that pop-up, come to the top, and I can go to the left and top and click user here. So that tells me that during my session, it will retain the new position across, even if I close the screen. So now if I run that screen again and I show it and I move that pop-up and then I close it and then I launch it again, it will pop up in that location. Okay. Now that's how the user works. If I click user, I'm basically saying, hey, I'm going to store this for the user, even though other users would still open at the normal place. The minute they move their thing, they would get their own user properties for that. Okay. Because we can share objects, concurrently among different users. Now, in this case, if I wanted to log out and log back in, that user property will not be retained across logouts. It'll only be retained while I'm operating now. But the minute I log out, log back in, it will open up back here again. If I want to retain across sessions, I'm going to click retain here, and that will save it to the database as a user property. Next time you log on, it'll remember where you were on this thing. So that's a useful feature. It's used in cases where we want to have user variables where each user can set their own variable and it won't conflict with others, and it's used for some screen behaviors like this. So anyway, that's it for the object editor tutorial. There's a lot there, and again, there'll be other videos to kind of go through maybe more of the details on that. Hopefully, you were able to follow along. And as I said, it's a very powerful editor used in all of that Appward development. So, as always, visit our website for any information, and also our YouTube channel for tutorial videos. And good luck coding in Appward. Code well and have a great day. Take care. Bye.